right, everybody, we got another very special guest for you. I want everybody to welcome back to the show, Mr. Charlie Stickney. What's going on, Charlie?
Well, guys, it's great to be seeing people virtually after seeing way too many people in person at San Diego. It was great, but sometimes you also need to kind of step back and get your space. So it's really great to spend time with you, but not have to, be on top of each other.
Yeah, and
yes, I feel you.
Sometimes you got to recharge too from all the social interactions. It's good to have some time to yourself. I'm sure
it is really hard to be nice for like 5 days, like be completely on and being, meeting with fans, meeting with other publishers, and you have to have that smile plastered. And okay, you can't even go back to your hotel room. It's like going to the parties afterwards is almost part of the job of being at San Diego. So like there was all of that, and Monday and Tuesday. When I came back this week, I just wanted to be alone, shut the door, but I have kids, so that wasn't going to happen. It's like we've reached a point right now where I'm feeling good and I'm recharged, and it's the perfect time for us to be talking.
Yeah, well, that's great. I'm interested to hear about San Diego Comic-Con because that's one Chris and I have always planned to go to, but obviously the last few years kind of fell through for us. So, give us the abridged version of how that went for you, because you were there for how many days? 5 days, you said?
Yeah. So San Diego runs from Wednesday through Sunday, which is great. Like there's a preview night on Wednesday night, and by that it's open from like 6 to 9 o'clock at night, and then on Thursday through Saturday it's open 9 a.m. till 7 p.m., which are long con days. And then
it's a long day.
Yeah. Well, then they also have the Eisners. They have the Comic-Con Masquerade. So there are events going on in the evenings and parties basically till about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock every single night. So it's a full slate. And I've been going for a long time. I think the first one I went to was 1998. It's easy because I live in Los Angeles, so it's not that far of a drive to get down, and it's a little bit not quite as expensive, but I would say it was really nice. It had not been open the last 3 years because of the pandemic. And this was the first year that they had been back, and they didn't let in quite as many people. They didn't issue any new tickets, and some people decided not to come back. So I would say it was about 70% of what it was the last time I was there in terms of capacity. Which for me was just about the right number of people. It's like you can still make some money, but you don't have to be a sardine when you're walking from booth to booth. And literally it's one of those places, like it's one of the biggest convention centers, if not the biggest area wise that I've ever been to. And it's literally over a half a mile long where you're walking, going past booths, but you'd have to march with your arms at your side, like sardines going different ways with different people. So this was great because I got to see a lot of people who I hadn't seen for a long time, and be able to talk to them. You could actually have conversations with people coming by your booth. I was fortunate because Scout Comics had a big booth there for the first time. It's hard to get a booth at San Diego, but Dark Horse did not come this year. And Dark Horse's loss was Scout's gain. So we stepped in. We had a big 20 by 20 there. We were able to host creators and just show off what we were doing. But I also, because even from my time when that predates Scout, I had a small press booth there to kind of show off White Ash and that brand. And once you get one of those things, you don't want to let it go. Especially because, again, it's hard to get it. So I still had that booth, and it was wonderful because I had a couple of the artists who I work with on White Ash who had come out, so they could help me run the booth, which gave me a lot of freedom to go back to the Scout booth, also to be on a lot of panels. And it's just a party. Like if you love comics, it is unlike anything that maybe New York Comic Con is closer, but this is even more of a spectacle. And one of my artists, he lives in Arizona. Arkansas. And so he had never been to a big city convention before, as I like to call it, a big city convention. And his jaw just dropped When we
I
walked
can
into the
imagine.
convention center, and then you'd see the big displays from Marvel and DC and the announcements they're having, and who's coming by the booth at different times, and who's he going to get to meet, and there's heavy metal, and
Yeah,
like what publisher do you want to meet? They're all here, and you can walk up
they're
to
all
the booth
there.
and say hello.
Yeah.
Like, here's Boom, here's IDW. I was on a panel with Matt Hawkins from Top Cow. Like, they're
Yep.
all there and
So
accessible.
cool.
So as a
Yeah.
creator or an aspiring creator, it's just a wonderful place to network. As a fan, it's amazing because you have access to all these comic personalities that you might admire their work, but now they are sitting at a table and happy to talk to you.
So I know you're doing a lot of work there, and obviously, like networking and stuff like that, but do you take some time to like stop by and buy some books for yourself from people?
So
Do you have time to
yes,
do
yes and
that?
no, yes and no.
Okay.
I always try to go around small press because I think that's where the next generation of creators are often coming from in
For
Artist
sure.
Alley.
Yep.
So if I know someone there, I'll often pick up their books just to support them. And then I have kids, so
Sure.
Daddy has to bring home stuff.
Yep. You gotta have cool stuff.
So there's definitely a little bit of me needing to do that shopping day where I go and get stuff for the kids, and it usually is on Sunday. So on Sunday, I went around a little bit in the morning and picked up a
Yeah.
couple of things.
Does your stack look like this when you get back?
That's just from Connecticut, the one he just got back from this
Oh my
weekend. So
goodness! If I had more time, my stack would look like that or more. Thankfully, I was too pressed for being on panels and working the booth to lose all my money. But Mick, who was the artist from Arizona, he basically at some point in the middle of the convention, he said, "Please, please do not let me leave the booth." He's like, because I don't have any more money to spend, and if you let me keep leaving the booth, I'm not going to be able to afford the flight home.
well, the I don't know what year it started where they're accepting credit cards at booths, but Chris and I would just take out a set number of cash and be like, this is what I'm spending. And then there was that one year they're like, oh no, we take cards. And I was like, this is going to be bad for everybody that one year.
Yeah. Bad for everyone except for the retailers, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Right.
Yes.
So, and I was, I saw it all on Twitter and stuff that Scout was there, and I was really excited to see that. And I'm sure a lot of fans were, especially the giant booth like that. So can you talk a little bit about, the new things coming from Scout or where you see it going in the future? Because obviously, I mean, it's the titles you're putting out are hitting a lot of fans. People are resonating with all these titles, and I think they're becoming really popular, and Chris and I really enjoy all the stuff. So is there some kind of like future you see for Scout? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, I think it's really, we're trying to position it as, one of the next great homes for independent creators to bring their books. And, my personal mandate there at the company has been to try to be the creator liaison, to talk to creators, to give them the lay of the land, what they can expect, and be an accessible kind of publisher. Because you hear the kind of stories where people go to, like they sign their books and then they never hear from anybody. Or they're not really sure what's going on. So with a lot of these creators, I try to be the face that they can talk to, that they can get answers, that they can have their questions answered. And the more creators you get in, the bigger that job becomes.
Of course, yeah.
And we're really fortunate to have signed some amazing talent lately.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you had Zach Kaplan on your show, a couple weeks ago. And Zach is blowing up right now, and he's got books coming out from Vault and from Dark Horse and from Top Cow, and then Forever Forward from Scout, which is going to come out next month. I would plug it, but pre-orders just closed, but you can start putting in your pre-orders for issue 2. And that's a great series about a scientist who invents a time machine, and he accidentally gets sent into the future. And he sees this message scrawled on the wall, which basically said the way forward is the way back. And so he gets the sense that it's a message from himself. So he keeps jumping further and further into the future, and things keep getting worse and worse. And so he's kind of like chasing his tail to try to find the way home. It's a great series with beautiful art. So, and if you like Zach's work, I think you're going to love this book. It's one of the best things he's done.
Yeah.
Yep.
And have you, so in the past, like, you've got, Scout has ushered in kind of the new crop of creators, brought in a lot of people from Kickstarter or people who've just never been published before, who've been grinding in the indie scene. Are you starting to see more people like Zach show interest in the brand? That is, people that have been in the industry and done things across the board?
Sure, 100%. And I think, having bigger name creators at the company often, encourages other creators with names to come on board too. And, so we never want to lose sight of breaking new voices. I mean, you can see it's almost in the name, you're scouting out new talent, you're finding new paths for. I think like the two things that Scout is doing really well, maybe better than other publishers right now, is finding new voices and also finding new ways to get our books out to the direct market or direct to fans. Scout had the subscription box that we started doing way before other people. It's a throwback, but it's also something that people needed now. So we do direct distribution. We do all of these different things because we never want to be trapped in the way things used to be done. You want to do that and something more. So we're always looking for new paths. But yes, specifically, we have a couple of more established creators. Pat Shand, I don't know if you know Pat. He does Destiny New York, which is coming out through Black Mask, and a bunch of amazing things on Kickstarter. His series Cheeky just like broke $1 bazillion the other day. And Pat has a book that's coming out in September called Asa the Barbed that he's doing with Rio Burton. And that is like in that saga fantasy vein. And it's great. The art's great. The story's great. So I'm really excited about that. Let me just quickly pull up my
we had Pat on a few weeks ago, and we were interested in As the Barbed, and then that was another book where Leanna Kangas is doing a variant for, and I think it was at San Diego Comic-Con, right? And I was like, damn it, that's another one I would have picked up.
So that was a metal cover too.
I know, and I love those. Yeah.
So the metal version, I think, will probably be, I'm just telling you, I'm sure no one else will hear this. Some of them will probably be available on the Scout website. I've noticed right after the San Diego conventions, sometimes if there's some exclusives left over, they somehow end up there.
Interesting how that happens.
So you might be able to pick up one or two. So Pat's there. We have Kilchella, which is a serial killer book set at like a Burning Man kind of festival.
Okay.
Like a horror thing.
Interesting.
And it's got beautiful art. And it really hits like that urban horror kind of vein that I think is that people are loving right now. Let's see. She Bites is turning into a surprising hit for us right now. I mean, not surprising, but the numbers are even bigger than we were hoping for that, which is about a vampire who's in the body of a 12-year-old girl. So she appears like she's like 10, 11, 12, and she hires a babysitter so she can start going out and doing adult things because she's really like 200 years old. And what she wants to do is she wants to buy cigarettes and buy alcohol. And so she ropes in this babysitter to work with her. So the She Bites I think it's coming out, either it came out last week or it's coming out in the next week or two. We have, let's see, More Impossible Jones is coming out, which has been a really fun series. I don't know if you guys know Impossible Jones, but that's from Carl Kessel, who's, he also did a lot of stuff at DC. Eternus is coming out in the next couple of weeks, and Andy Serkis is attached to that. That's a big, it's a murder mystery set back in the time of the Greek gods. And so, there's a lot of fun, different titles and some bigger names that are coming to Scout. So I'm really excited about, that landscape. I'm excited about the fact that Scout has more visibility now, which gives us the opportunity to do new things with the creators and attract new types of people and hopefully find the books in new types of stores. I think that the bigger your imprint gets, the easier it is to say, hey, why don't you check out some of these Scout books? And once people do, they realize how good they are.
And I think the last time we talked, you'd also discussed a lot about multimedia options outside of comics with these IPs. And since then, with the signing of the recount and a few other things that have happened, have you seen people outside of comics also noticing Scout as a place to look for great talent and IP work?
Oh,
Has
for
that
sure.
picked up at all?
Yeah, I mean, like I think Scout's always had a lot of multimedia crossover because there's several people in the company, including myself, who have also worked in the TV or film space, and so there's a lot of back and forth. The real truth, and this is something that I will say about like every comic book company, most publishers probably have 15 to 30 things that have been optioned at any given time. The problem is it's a long road from something being optioned to something being made. And so we at Scout, we try to announce the things that are the most likely to be made of the things that have been optioned, of the things that are being fast tracked. Unicorn, I know, is one of the furthest that's down the line right now. They've already cast it. They're looking to start filming that one later this summer. So, like things are moving, but again, it's just a long process to go from, hey, someone likes this idea, hey, someone's put a little money down so they have the rights, to how do we get from there to the thing being made.
Okay.
I mean, like you look at something like Why the Last Man, which was on TV for like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Like
Oh my God.
I believe that was first optioned in 2005. So
Long
it
time
took
ago.
like 17 years for it to see the screen, and then it only saw the screen for like 4 episodes.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that. I mean, just even from my own career in film, I had a script that was optioned back in 2003, and it's still in development. And by that, I mean, like, it's been picked up by different studios, different writers have been attached, and they keep trying to make this movie. And yeah, I mean, here we are almost 20 years later, and, not a frame's been shot, but people keep trying to do things with it.
Wow. Yeah, that's we hear some fun stories too, like when we're not recording of pilots that have been written and never went anywhere from some writers that we've talked to and stuff. Yeah, it's interesting how that happens.
I had a film that was going to be shot in Ireland, and they shot 3 scenes of, and then the Irish economy crashed, and the funding they thought was going to come through from the government dried up. So I have
Oh my
3
God.
scenes from a movie I wrote and nothing else.
Oh wow.
So, but 3 scenes is more than no
there you
scenes,
go.
right?
Yeah, exactly. It's something. Okay, so let's focus a little bit more on you and what you have going on. So, Kickstarter, you have Glarien of White Ash going on right now. I think there's about 9 days left. So, that's part of this series that you've been writing for quite a while, right? So, can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So the White Ash universe, the quick pitch on that is, I like to use Romeo and Juliet meets Lord of the Rings in rural Pennsylvania. Or imagine the guys from Supernatural got stuck in Riverdale, but rather than battling demons from hell, they had to deal with the worst of mortal. It's grounded fantasy in a coal mining town in western Pennsylvania. So for those people who love fantasy set in the real world, where there's a little bit of that creep coming in, where it follows ordinary people who start discovering the fantastical elements around them. That's White Ash. And imagine elves, dwarves, coal mining country, and you kind of have the whole thing. Glarien is a prequel spin-off to White Ash. It takes place 3,000 years ago in Elfheim, where we're following the world's most dangerous elf, but the story is being told through the eyes of a young woman in 1972 New York City who's having visions of being Glarien 3,000 years ago. And so over the course of the miniseries, their 2 stories are going to slowly come together, and then we'll eventually see how this is a piece of the backstory of White Ash. So I love just doing high fantasy, but taking it in more grounded settings, because I feel like it becomes more accessible for people. And also, Tolkien already did it. Terry Brooks already did it, and I'm not going to try to out Tolkien. I'm not going to try to out Terry Brooks. So, I might as well do what I do, which is, taking great characters and, just giving them a little spin. So that's what it's doing. And so, we've been very successful on Kickstarter where we have a huge fan base, which is great because it lets you tell stories for as long as you want them. Unlike the direct market where, your first issue does X number of copies and the second issue is usually half that. And then it keeps going down by like 10% every issue that you put out. Kickstarter is the opposite, where if you have a good series, your audience continues to grow as you go forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, are you working with the same creative team for this as you did with White Ash?
So I have two different creative teams that I work with. With White Ash, Connor Hughes is the penciler and the co-creator of the series, and then Finn Cram is the colorist. For Glarien, also because it's White Ash is a PG-13 book where R-rated characters come to visit every now and then. Glarien is one of those R-rated characters. So her book is R-rated, and I think anytime that you're dealing with something that has a little bit of sexuality in it, especially if it's a female character, I love, if I can, to have a female artist draw that, because I think it helps it be sexy without being objectifying, in a way that sometimes when you have a man drawing it, you don't get that kind of thing. So that's being drawn by Romana Morinelli, who is incredible. She draws and colors all of the stuff that's set in Alfheim. And then she draws, but Finn Cram, who's the White Ash colorist, colors the stuff that's set in the 1970s, which helped ties the more modern part of the story into the White Ash Prime universe.
Interesting. And I mean, you don't need our help pushing this, but you've already completely funded, I think, like about 5 times over almost. But you can take those funds and develop more for this universe, right? And have more prequels or more books pertaining to that.
Yeah. I have a lot in the works. I mean, we are like, if it was a TV show, envision that we are right now about 40% of the way through the first season of the TV show. And I have the TV show mapped out for about 5 seasons. So, we're just getting started with the main story, and I'm using these. I have at least 2 more miniseries that are scheduled to go after this one that start help fleshing out the backstory of the universe. So yeah, it's a big world, and thankfully we have thousands of people on Kickstarter who love the series. So I know that I can attempt to do something that ambitious and not be worried about the diminishing returns from the direct market to sort of curtail that kind of creative vision.
Mm-hmm. And just from someone who's been, watching all these different avenues for funding, like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, do you think you'll stick with Kickstarter? Because I know a lot of people have been changing different spots. Have you thought about other avenues, or do you like Kickstarter and you're going to stick with that?
So Kickstarter has been really good to me. I mean, like, if you look at my campaigns, you can see how good.
There's a lot. Yeah,
it's hard from that perspective to want to change horses midstream. And I also have a really good relationship with the team at Kickstarter. Actually, at San Diego, I was on the Kickstarter panel, the official Kickstarter panel,
with
cool. The head of,
that's great.
Oriana Lockhart, who's the head of publishing, had me on with Joseph Illidge, who's the editor-in-chief over at Heavy Metal, and Jimmy Palmiotti. So and Kat Kamala. So it was a great panel. I think it's great to have several viable alternatives, because the better the crowdfunding scene it is, the more it pushes all the different platforms to innovate and to do different things, and it gives the creators choice. And I think certain platforms work better for certain creators, depending on what kind of tone your book is or what you're looking. Like Zoop is a newer platform. One of the things that Zoop does is they handle your fulfillment for you. As part of their packaging deal, they can do that. So if you're someone who doesn't want to pack, 500 or 300 packages or whatever your campaign is going to do, I mean, that might be a viable alternative. But what Kickstarter has that none of the others have is that huge user base. So when I do a campaign on Kickstarter, I'm likely going to find 300 to 500 new people who had never seen my stuff before, who now come in or now part of the White Ash universe, who are buying the catch-up packs, who want to be part of what I'm doing, who might come and buy stuff from Scout. So it increases the ecosystem in a way that the other platforms can't do yet.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's some good insight, because I do believe that it's always good to have some competition out there. But yeah, I mean, there's that fan base that really resides at Kickstarter right now that it's kind of hard to beat that volume of people. And on the other side of it, we talked about earlier some of your work with the Immortal Studios. Can you chat about that a little bit? What's going on over there?
Sure. So Immortal Studios is an emerging company which is building an interconnected wuxia universe. If you don't know what wuxia is, it's like that mystical martial arts like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And so they are building a universe, interconnected universe around these different stories in much the way that like Marvel has like the power tiers. If you want to think about it, like you have like the street level, like the Punisher, then we go up a little bit to Spider-Man, then you might go up to Thor, and then you go into Captain Marvel or whatever. You get more cosmic as you grow up. The same thing happens in the wuxia universe, where you have people who basically have tapped more into the chi and into the spirituality and can do increasingly more insane things. And so I'm writing a title there called The Adept, which is about a young woman who had this traumatic incident happen when she was a kid, got sent into foster care, and then started having dreams of being trained by this Shaolin master. And wasn't really sure like if it was a dream or if she was going crazy. And so she kind of sequestered herself away because she didn't want to hurt anybody, because she was also really angry about things that had happened to her. And so she goes and basically trains during the day, implementing what she's seeing at night during her dreams for about 10 years. Then the dreams completely stop. And now she really doesn't know if she was nuts for all this time. And starting, she's like, you know what? I'm putting this aside. I'm going to try to rebuild my life. She finds her sister, who she's been out of contact with from 10 years, and starts, trying to rebuild a normal life. And then she goes with her sister to this concert. And then there's a terrorist attack at the concert. And all of a sudden on the stage, she sees the Shaolin master fighting these terrorists. And she knows, like, that guy's got the answers to whether I'm crazy or not. And she has to sort of put into practice all these things she's learned in the dreams and find out whether she is insane, whether she is, this adept, this person who's been being trained by this person, and find out she's part of this greater universe and has a purpose and a place in all of that. And then like that was like the first part of the story is the journey of this young woman, Amy. And it's a great company, and I've really enjoyed working with them as they're trying to bring authenticity to that genre. We even have a choreographer who used to be the editor-in-chief of Kung Fu Magazine, who works with everything to make sure the fight forms and moves that are in the book are actually authentic to the style and what they would be in the moments. So there's a lot of emphasis on making sure it's being done right and honoring the traditions that that genre has established over the years.
So I see they got like 3 or 4 books announced through this new initiative. Are these all like a shared universe kind of thing?
Yeah. Like it's all going to be coming together. We had The Adept. There's Chronicles of the Immortal Swordsman. There's Fa Shang Origins, and Assassin G is about to drop, I think, next month on Kickstarter. They're going to Kickstarter first to help build awareness, but they also just signed a big distribution deal with Dynamite Entertainment. So all of these books will be coming out also through Dynamite. But if you're a collector and you want the limited print run versions, the Kickstarter is probably coming first.
Okay. And I do see they have, I'm so happy we're talking to you today, because I didn't know about Immortal Studios. Somehow it just did not go under my radar, but I'm a huge fan of this type of stuff, and to hear that there's a choreographer too behind how the fight scene should work out that's so interesting to me, especially for this type of media. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I was going to say, Peter, who started the company, his father in China was basically the Stephen King of wuxia. He wrote something like 60 of these novels that became
Wow.
half the TV shows that they were making in the 70s and 80s and 90s. So he comes from a lineage of this genre, and he's trying to bring some of that to America, but also make it authentic so it doesn't feel cheap. Like that really honors the tradition of where it comes from and the actual the actual traditions. And he works a lot with the Shaolin Temple, so like that's also involved in in the books. And and Ryland Grant, who is on board writing Fa Sheng Origins, he's a Zen Buddhist monk. So like it's bringing in people who really resonate with the material and will treat it properly.
Wow. Yeah, I'm really excited to check out more of these because so you have 2 issues out right now of the Adept, right?
Yes, we're just finalizing up the 3rd issue right now. That's drawn by Yishan Li, who is an incredible artist. I don't know if you know her work, but she did Swing at Top Cow. She's done some stuff for Dark Horse. She actually did a book for Pat Shand that recently came out. So she's an incredible artist to work with. I think Dexter Wiesen, Fa Sheng Origins. I'm trying to remember who the others are off the top, but Immortal had a great panel also at San Diego, and that was just incredible to be part of.
Yeah, I'm excited to read these. I wish I read it before the interview now because it's like right up my alley. So I'll be I'll be checking these out. What
these are for? Like it's
yeah.
You were here to introduce people to the new worlds of comics, right?
Exactly.
And hopefully your guests have something they can contribute. So we're doing our job here.
Yeah.
I feel
exactly.
good.
It's all working out. All right, great.
I'll
I
say,
think it's
when we start talking about shared universes again, my mind kind of turns off. But like the fact that it's something different, that it's not like, and I don't want to throw people under the bus, but like when AWA announced their new superhero universe, and I was like, do we need another universe like that? Where this is like, even though it's not my cup of tea, it's really Mike's cup of tea. It's cool that it's different.
Well, and
I like that about this.
To be specific, like some of these, like the Fa Sheng Origins is set in the early 1900s during the Boxer Revolution in China. So like that one, that's not interconnected in that way. It's just more that the character is going to be interconnected later on. The Adept is set modern day. Assassin G is set in the 80s. So it, down the road, there'll be some interconnected, but they all live in the same space. But each of these are their own series that you can read and just enjoy for what they are. So if like one speaks to you more than the others, you don't necessarily need to get it. But I think like, interconnectivity is the buzzword that everyone's trying to do right now, right? White Ash and Glarien are interconnected, but I think as writers, as creators, it's also our job to be like, hey, this is also its own thing. And I have plenty of people who just want to read Glarien and don't want to read White Ash, and vice versa. So I'm happy when people want to do both, because in my mind it's one big story. But I do think as creators we have an obligation to make each its own thing, so you don't feel like I'm just reading part of a story. I'm reading a story, and then if I want to connect it, it connects.
Yeah, understood. That makes sense to me. I'm excited to check these out, and you still have, there's, for anybody listening, there's almost 10 days left for Glarien of White Ash on Kickstarter. Charlie, thanks again for being here. If our listeners and our watchers want to follow you and everything you're doing, if they're not already, which they should be, where can we send them as far as what you're doing on social media?
So I'm most active on Twitter at Charles Stickney.
Okay.
I respond. I retweet a lot of great Kickstarters because I try to promote, those and also independent comics. I promote comics from other publishers as well, because I do think it's important that we're all a community that works together. Publishers, fans, podcasts, all working together to get the word out on what's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Okay, great.
Yeah, and if any of our listeners want to check out the great work that Charlie's doing, I'll have links to the Kickstarter, links to Scout Comics, so you can check out all those awesome books. And I will try to find links to the Immortal Studio stuff as well, So check the show notes down below and click on those links. Check out all the great books. And Charlie, thank you so much for taking the time today to come talk to us. We always love talking to you.
Anytime you
thanks,
guys want
Charlie.
me, happy to be here.
All right, we'll take you up on that.